It was just another ordinary day in the courtroom. At least that's how it started. The room buzzed with quiet murmurs, the shuffling of papers, and the usual back and forth between the judge and attorneys. But what happened next would flip the script in a way no one saw coming. A young black man stood calmly in front of the bench, facing charges that didn't seem to match the man he was. A calm, respectful, soft-spoken guy who looked like he didn't belong there. But for some reason, Judge Whitmore, a woman known for her sharp tongue and strict courtroom demeanor, seemed to have already made up her mind. The tension in the room was thick. You could feel the discomfort in the air as she spoke to him with a cold edge, using words that made some people in the room glance at each other in disbelief. Her tone wasn't just harsh, it felt personal. She questioned him in ways that seemed unnecessary, tossing in snide remarks about his kind, and doubting his ability to even understand the charges. Her voice dripped with judgment, not just about the case but about who he was. The courtroom sat in stunned silence. It wasn't just what she said, it was how she said it. Dismissive, cruel, degrading. And the man? He didn't raise his voice. He didn't argue. He just stood there, steady and calm, his eyes never leaving hers. That calm, that quiet strength. It wasn't because he was defeated. It was because he knew something no one else in the room did. 7 minutes later, the entire courtroom was flipped upside down. The same judge who'd mocked and insulted him would be the one in cuffs, and the person standing there with the authority to put her there? The same man she had tried to humiliate just minutes earlier. But this wasn't the only story unfolding that day. In a different part of the city, on a crowded bus, a young black teen named Jordan stood quietly in the aisle. He was on his way. Home from school, backpack slung over one shoulder, earbuds in, zoning out from the noise around him. Then the bus stopped. A tired-looking pregnant woman stepped on, holding her belly, scanning for an empty seat. There weren't any. Without hesitation, Jordan tapped someone's shoulder to scoot over, then offered his own seat to the woman. She smiled, clearly grateful, and took it slowly, resting with a heavy sigh. They didn't exchange many words. Just a polite thank you, a quick nod, and Jordan went back to standing. But when the woman got off a few stops later, she left something behind. A small folded piece of paper. Jordan picked it up, assuming it was trash at first, but when he opened it, everything changed. The words on that note would lead him into something much bigger than he ever expected. A door to a life he never imagined. 2 stories, 2 moments, 2 acts of quiet strength. One in a courtroom where power was abused and reclaimed. One on a city bus where kindness opened an unexpected path. What connects them? And how does a random act of respect lead to a life-changing opportunity? You're about to find out. But be warned, nothing is what it seems. Stay tuned. The train station buzzed with noise. Announcements overhead, luggage wheels rattling on tile. Voices overlapping in every direction. But Malik didn't hear any of it. His focus was locked on Kira, who moved through the crowd like she'd done this 1,000 times. She kept her head low, her hoodie pulled over her short, curly hair, eyes scanning for threats even as she talked. They're tracking patterns, Malik, not people, not at first. It starts with small things. Someone helps a stranger. Someone gives away their last dollar. Someone puts themselves at risk when there's no reward. That's when the red flags go up in their system. To them, that's chaos. He tightened his grip on the case slung across his chest. But why care about that? Why does kindness matter to them? Kira glanced at him, her voice low. Because kindness breaks the equation. It's unpredictable. It sparks resistance. The system they built, the real one, it only works if people follow patterns. And you didn't. They slipped out a side entrance and into the street, but Malik's gut twisted. He could feel it. Eyes. He turned just in time to catch a reflection in the glass behind them. A man across the street. Same dark coat, no expression, too still. Watching. They're here, he said, heartbeat rising. Kira didn't stop. I know. They ducked into a narrow alley, then through the back door of a hardware store. The clerk barely looked up, Kira moved like she'd memorized every path through this city, down a maintenance hallway, through another exit, and into the underground freight tunnels that ran beneath the financial district. Malik's mind was racing. "I still don't understand," he said. "This case, the woman, what do they want?" Kira stopped walking. Her tone shifted. "They want to erase the spark," she said. "That one small thing you did, giving up your seat, it wasn't just about kindness, it was about agency. You made a choice they didn't predict, and every time that happens, their system cracks. A little." She turned toward him. "You think this is about you, but it's not. It's about the millions like you, about what happens when one person starts a ripple. The people they can't track, they scare them." Malik stared at her, eyes narrowing. "And the woman on the bus?" Kira hesitated, then nodded. "She used to work inside, one of the analysts. But she started asking the wrong questions. She disappeared a few years ago. We thought she was gone, but then she showed up again, pregnant, hiding in plain sight. And she found you." Malik felt the floor shift under him. "So I'm not just a random good guy." Kira shook her head. "You were chosen because you thought you were just that. Normal. That's the terrifying part." The freight tunnel ended in a steel door with a keypad. Kira punched in a code. The door opened into a safe house. Dim lights, scattered tech gear, thick blinds on the windows. A shortwave radio sat humming in the corner, static buzzing. Inside, a woman sat on a folding chair, cradling a small child in her arms. Malik froze. It was her, the woman from the bus. Her face lit up the moment she saw him, tired but alive, like someone who had been waiting for this exact moment. The child stirred in her arms. "You came," she said softly. Malik couldn't speak. His throat tightened. "I didn't know what was happening," he finally said. "You gave me that note and disappeared." The woman nodded. "Because if I stayed, they would have found you faster. But now, we don't have much time." She motioned to the briefcase. "Do you have it?" He stepped forward and handed it over. She opened it slowly, revealing a series of documents, data drives, and something else. A small silver disc, glowing faintly. Kira leaned in, eyes wide. "That's it," Kira whispered. "The original node." The woman nodded. "This holds the algorithm they use to track choice behavior. Every person flagged by the system is on this disk. Names, faces, future projections. They call it the seed. With this, they control who rises and who disappears." Malik felt his chest tighten. "So what happens if they get it back?" "They lock the future," she said simply. "They erase people before they make waves, artists, activists, anyone who sparks unrest. People like you." Outside, the sharp whine of tires cut through the silence. Kira rushed to the window, lifting the blind a sliver. 3 black vans. "No plates," she said. "They found us." The woman handed Malik the disc. Her hand trembled. "You have to get this to someone else. I can't move fast, not with the baby. But if they catch you, they'll wipe your identity. And no one will even remember you were here." Malik stared at the glowing disc in his palm. The weight of it, the danger, the possibility. "I'm just a kid," he said quietly. Kira stepped beside him, firm but kind. "Exactly. You're a kid who chose to stand up when no one was watching. That's why this matters. That's why they're scared." The door shook as something slammed against it. Once. Twice. Voices shouted. Malik's heart pounded like a drum. He looked at the woman. "What's your name?" he asked. She smiled sadly. "Lena." And then the lights cut out. Darkness swallowed the room. And just like that, it began. The darkness hit hard, like the room had vanished completely. For a second, Malik couldn't even breathe. The sudden blackout wasn't just the power going out. It felt surgical, like someone had flipped a switch in the exact moment they were about to move. The baby in Lena's arms let out a soft cry, and Kira reached into her bag, pulling out a small flashlight. Its beam cut through the gloom in a narrow cone, just enough to make out faces. "Backup generators?" Malik whispered. Kira shook her head. We're off-grid. No tech that can be traced, but they just hit the main power node for the block, which means they're trying to isolate us, Lena said, finishing her sentence. The pounding on the steel door started again, this time heavier, more calculated. A low hum vibrated through the floor, something mechanical, maybe a cutting tool or portable battering ram. Kira pulled a small pistol from her belt and handed it to Malik. His hands froze. When she placed it in his grip, "I've never," he started. "You won't have to use it," she interrupted. "But if they get through, don't let them take the disc." Malik swallowed hard, eyes flicking to the silver disc still in his other hand. He slipped it into the inside pocket of his jacket, zipped it up, and double-checked. It was still there, still glowing faintly through the fabric. "Okay," he muttered. "Okay." Then Kira turned to Lena. "There's still the B route, right? The passage behind the storage wall?" Lena nodded. "It leads into the service tunnels under the old mall, but it's tight, and we'd have to go single file." Kira moved to the far side of the room, started pushing a dusty shelf away from the wall, exposing a small door barely visible beneath layers of paint. The pounding outside turned to scraping, metal grinding against metal. They didn't have much time. "You two go first," Kira said. "I'll buy you a few minutes." Lena hesitated. "That's suicide." Kira gave her a sharp look. "We don't all need to make it out, just the story." Malik felt the weight of those words settle in his chest. The story, the truth. That's what the disc really was, everything they'd tried to hide. Proof of how choices were tracked, how kindness and unpredictability weren't glitches in the system, but threats to it. As Malik stepped into the narrow tunnel behind the wall, he realized how deep this went. It wasn't just about some tech or conspiracy. It was about control, about who gets to decide what kind of future people live in. And somehow, without asking for it, he'd become a piece in that fight. The tunnel was dark, barely wide enough for his shoulders. Lena came behind him, the baby against her chest wrapped tight. They moved slowly, the air stale and tight. Every sound echoed like it didn't belong. Pipes hissed in the distance, and faint rumbles above told them the street was still alive with traffic. Just not here. Not in this forgotten space. Behind them, the distant sound of gunfire cracked once, then silence. Malik paused, his breath catching. He looked back, but Lena gently urged him forward. She knew what this was. She said quietly, "We keep moving." They emerged 10 minutes later into a maintenance corridor under the old mall, where flickering lights buzzed overhead. The place had been abandoned for years, overtaken by graffiti and silence. But Malik noticed something strange. Makeshift rooms behind broken storefronts, hammocks strung up, shelves of canned food, maps pinned to walls. People had been here. Lena guided him to one of the rooms and knocked a quick pattern. 3 taps. Pause, 2 more. A metal panel shifted and a tall man with a scar above his brow pulled it open. "Lena?" he asked. "Emergency. We don't have long." The man stepped aside. Malik and Lena entered. Inside, a small group of people looked up from their work, old computers, maps, and tactical gear scattered around. They were all different. Young, old, black, Latino, white, Southeast Asian. But every face had the same thing in common. They looked like people who had seen too much and walked away from comfort anyway. "This is Malik," Lena said. "He has the seed." The air changed instantly. An older woman stood up, eyes locked on Malik. "You brought it?" He nodded, unzipping his jacket and pulling the disc out. She reached for it, but Malik pulled back slightly. "What happens if I give it to you?" he asked. "What's the plan?" The woman gave a slow, thoughtful answer. "We get the data out, public, open source. Once people see what the system's been doing, how deeply it's been watching them, manipulating them, they'll rise up. This doesn't go through politicians or media channels. It goes straight to the people." Malik looked around the room. Some nodded. Some watched him warily. And suddenly he realized something else. They were fighting for the future, yeah. But not all of them trusted him to hold it. At that same moment, Miles away, in a tall glass building above the skyline, a man in a sleek black suit stood before a large screen. Dozens of profiles flickered by. Data points, behavior patterns, names, decisions. On one of them, Malik Johnson, his photo, a red tag blinking beneath it. "Subject has gone off pattern," said a voice behind him. "He's shown strong agency, unfiltered empathy. No viable suppression model worked." The man didn't flinch, just stared. "What about Contingency X?" he asked. The room grew colder. The silence was long. "It's been activated." He nodded slowly. "Then it begins." Back in the underground mall, Malik stood at a crossroads he hadn't seen coming. Lena's child whimpered softly in her arms. The group waited for his choice. He wasn't sure why, but something inside him said this wasn't the last decision he'd have to make. Not by far, because now they knew his name, and soon the world would too. The room felt tighter than it actually was. Malik could hear the faint buzz of the old fluorescent lights above them. But under that noise was something else. Breathing, whispers, eyes shifting. The kind of quiet where no one knew what came next, only that whatever it was would change everything. He still had the disc in his hand. It felt heavier now, not like a piece of tech, but like a fuse waiting for the right spark. The older woman who'd asked for it, Janessa, someone had whispered her name, was still standing there with her hand slightly outstretched, waiting, not pressuring, just watching him with a calm he didn't understand. He thought about what Kira had said, about stories, about control, about how the system wasn't afraid of chaos, it was afraid of choice. "I need to know something first," Malik said, breaking the silence. "If I give this to you, are you going to bury it somewhere, use it to build something else behind the scenes, or are you actually going to show people?" Janessa's face didn't change, but something in her posture shifted, like she'd been waiting for him to ask that. "I've lived through enough silence, Malik," she said, voice low and sure. "Watched good people get erased, not because they did something wrong, but because they were unpredictable. They scared the system. This disc, it's proof of every person they tried to control before they ever made a real choice. We're not hiding it. We're amplifying it." He looked down at the silver disc, then back at the room. These people, rebels, hackers, whistleblowers, they all looked tired, but they weren't running. They'd stayed underground for something, and somehow they were waiting on him. "I'm not the leader type," he mumbled. "You don't have to be," Lena said, gently. "You just have to be honest. That's what they're afraid of." Before he could answer, the emergency comm on the wall crackled to life. A distorted voice broke through the static. "They found us." It was a lookout from one of the perimeter tunnels. His voice came in panicked bursts. 3 units. Not cops. Gear looks corporate. Blacked out helmets. Weapons drawn. Not asking questions. The room jolted into motion. People snapped into roles, grabbing bags, sealing laptops, slipping on vests and throwing tarps over gear. Janessa moved to a console and started typing furiously. "Every safe house has a timed exposure," she said. "Once they find the tunnel, we have 5 minutes max before they breach this location. We need to split up. If they catch one of us, we can't all go down." Malik could feel it happening again, just like before. He was being moved, shuffled, protected, but this time he didn't want to be the one hiding. Not anymore. "Where do you need me?" he asked. Janessa looked up, met his eyes. "We need you to walk out with it." Lena stepped forward, alarmed. "What? No, he can't just walk out into that. He doesn't even know the protocols." "That's why it has to be him," Janessa said. "They won't expect him to move through the public routes. Their pattern says he'll hide. We flip the script. He walks right through the front of the old subway line while we trigger heat signatures elsewhere. He takes the disc and leaves the zone. We sync with a broadcast point on the outside and go live. They can't shut down every signal." Malik felt his heartbeat spike. It sounded insane, but also right. He was invisible to them once, normal, harmless, just a kid who gave up his seat on a bus. That moment had exposed something the system didn't plan for. Maybe he could do it again. How far's the broadcast point, he asked. Janessa pulled up a map. 6 blocks east, abandoned news station with a satellite uplink. We've preloaded everything we need. You just plug the disk into the terminal and hit send. That's it. And what happens after? Janessa's eyes softened. After. You run, we all run, or we fight, but first the truth gets out. The comm crackled again. They're inside. Everything happened at once. Someone triggered the lockdown sequence. Metal shutters slammed down over the safe house entrances. Lights flickered as power rerouted. Lena handed Malik a battered backpack. Put it in here. Keep it close. Don't let anyone touch you. If they do, drop it and run. Understand? Nodded, slipping the disk into a sealed compartment in the bag and zipping it shut. His hands shook slightly. He'd never carried anything this important. Not a phone, not a test, not even hope. Janessa opened a secondary tunnel behind a storage shelf. This leads to the east corridor. You'll pop up in the old subway station. From there it's street level. We'll do our part to pull them away. He looked at Lena, then back at Janessa, then turned to go. Malik, Janessa said just as he stepped into the tunnel. He turned. Don't let them convince you that you're small. That's how they win. He didn't reply. He couldn't. Words didn't fit anymore. Only steps. The tunnel was narrow and warm, the kind of place where sound bounced around too easily. He could hear every breath, every footstep. The old subway station smelled like damp concrete and rusted rails. His sneakers echoed across the empty floor as he stepped into the ghost of a world left behind. And then he heard them. Boots. Not just one set, many. Moving fast. He ducked behind an old turnstile, heart pounding so loud it drowned out his thoughts. Through a shattered window, he spotted them. 3 figures, fully armored, black helmets, no insignia. They moved like they'd trained for this. No hesitation. One of them knelt by the floor, scanning something with a small handheld device. Tracking. He didn't have much time. The news station was 6 blocks away, but the way was crawling with danger. Malik reached into his bag to touch the disk, not to check it, just to remind himself it was real, that this whole thing wasn't a dream. And then, from behind him, a whisper. You shouldn't have taken it. He spun, but there was no one there, just the shadows shifting and a new sound rising. Helicopter blades, getting closer. They were coming from above, too. And Malik? He started to run.